Boy, does the Disneyland entrance look different today than it did back in 1955 and through the 60s and 70s. We still have that same familiar Main Street station beckoning us into the park, but look at this, gone is the old parking lot, replaced, of course, with another theme park and this huge esplanade full of pedestrians. We're back at the happiest place on earth, Disneyland. I love looking at that old, simpler entrance from a simpler time. Just a little bit of chain link, a lot more honor systems, and a little bit of an obsession. It's something I'm constantly doing on and off camera. But I think my absolute favorite thing is looking into the Disneyland of the past, Walt Disney's Disneyland. Since I feel like it's been nothing but Christmas, Christmas, Christmas for weeks and weeks, I thought today, instead of visiting the Disneyland of 2024 and 2025, we would step back in time. Back to the classic Disneyland of about the year 1960. Let's do this. Oh my gosh, it's working. Do you know what we're seeing now? We're seeing the mists of time. And look, there it is. Main Street Station, back in Walt State. Look at all those colorful banners above those old gates right there. I love the idea that peeking over the top of the gate at the Main Street Station was so exciting for people in the 1950s. You see the E from Disneyland from above the gate right there. And look at that, it's our old familiar friend. It's Floral Mickey. You notice there's no bricks down on the bottom of that wall. It's just bare concrete. This is still the early days. Whoa! We're already on Main Street, USA, and there goes the fire truck. Look at how glorious Main Street Station looks. And I think we're panning down through Town Square. There's the omnibus rolling around, that double-decker bus. Look at how beautiful and clean the park is. And most importantly, look how empty it is. Now, if I walked into Disneyland in 2024 or 2025, and saw a crowd this light, I'd be wondering if I died and gone to heaven. Look at that. How fantastically beautiful. Little wind blowing in the trees here. There's a little bit of a crowd, a few people walking around. You know what, you can't face the excitement of a Disneyland day without a little coffee. And this is the spot right here, Hills Brothers Coffee Garden, to get a cup of joe in the morning. I don't want to jump back and forth too much in time. I don't want it to be too jarring for you, but look at this. This is where Hills Brothers Coffee Garden was back in the day. Now it's the livery stable and the little tunnel to get back into Disneyland while avoiding Main Street, USA during parades. How fantastic. I feel like today most people just cruise on down Main Street. They're trying to get deeper into the park, seeing all the lands and attractions, and they forget that Main Street, USA is an attraction in and of itself. Look at the horse-drawn streetcars. Look at this. It's the old Main Street Flower Market with the Carnation truck parked right there. You can climb up and get a fun pic inside of. It's funny that this architecture was only 50, 60 years old at the time Main Street USA was built, but people were already nostalgic for that old-timey American small-town Main Street vibe. Uh-oh, and what's this guy doing? Man, with a suspicious package! Look at these plastic flowers over here. These fake flowers were such a hit. People took these flowers home to their loved ones, to their mothers. The crazy thing is, I've never seen a bouquet of flowers from the flower market like in modern times. I need to snatch one of these while I'm back in time and take it home to the future, because I don't know anyone who's got one. Up here comes the old double-decker bus coming right past the INA Carefree Corner. Let's see that again. That building was sponsored by an insurance company, so they go in and give you little brochures and things, travel brochures. It was one of Disneyland's many exciting sponsors. Let's just take one long last look down Main Street. Here comes the little yellow car cruising down Main Street into the hub, past the Plaza Gardens. Looking back at the flagpole for a second. Look at the crowds. Look how light they are. Oh, what a beautiful day on Main Street, USA. Here's the old Plaza Pavilion restaurant that nowadays is the Jolly Holiday Bakery, right there in the hub. Ooh, and it looks like now we're getting our first glimpse of Tomorrowland, Walt Disney's original Tomorrowland. Look at all those flags there, the atomic clock, the giant rocket ship. Oh, it's so tempting to want to go in there, but of course, first we have to see the icon of Disneyland, Sleeping Beauty Castle. Look at that thing. I love the way they used to have those colorful flags fluttering up above the turrets, and these colorful flags along the drawbridge over the castle moat. I mean, how beautiful and how amazing does that castle look with no trees behind it? It looks absolutely massive. Oh, now peering down into the moat, look at this. Swans, beautiful swans. Notice there's no Snow White grotto back there yet, no wishing well, but look down here. Not only do you have 2 white swans, you've got a black swan. There are various reasons given over the years and myths about why the swans were removed from Disneyland. But I think the one I believe the most, that swans are kind of mean, so as the park got more crowded, sometimes the swans would get out and bite. All right, now we're headed over the drawbridge into Fantasyland. Look at that portcullis, obviously blowing this visitor back in the day's mind. Oh, and this is where the fun begins. Finally, look at that giant carousel. Look at that beautiful old ticket booth. The colors, all of that amazing canvas, hand-painted canvas and wood. Fantasyland. Of course, there are a few sturdier parts of Fantasyland with very detailed architecture, obviously impressing a guest from the 1960s and 1950s. And look at this, it's Tinkerbell Toy Shop. This was a legendary toy shop for generations of kids, including my mom. It was her favorite shop at Disneyland. This is now, of course, the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique today, so it looks a little bit different. Kind of wish it was still a toy shop inside of there, because as nice as the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique is, none of the dresses are ever in my size. By the way, if you've ever wondered why this entrance to the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, the one right next to Snow White, has got all of these wood carvings right here that have to do with Captain Hook and the Croc and Mr. Smee. It's because those are leftovers, relics from the original Tinkerbell toy shop. And by the way, there's one character missing. One of these wooden carved characters that's now missing. Do you know who it is? Bonus points if you leave that down in the comments. Anyway, back to the Fantasyland of the past. See here that the roof line of Fantasyland was definitely very impressive to people. See, this is the way Fantasyland always should have been. It was budget constraints that led to it looking more like a fantasy fun fair. You can see the walk-through attraction up into Sleeping Beauty's castle here. The spires, blowing people's minds, inspiring people. People thought the Disneyland castle was huge back in the day, again, because there were no trees around it, fewer attractions that were tall back then. So the castle was plenty tall to the visitor back in the mid-20th century. Look at all the beautiful details. And these details are still here with us today. We just don't pay attention to them. All the ironwork, the brickwork, the stonework. Look at this! Look at that beautiful original facade for Peter Pan's flight. I love it. Oh, and here's a Mad Hatter, a little shop next door, a little hat shop. There used to be one right smack in the middle of Fantasyland's sort of main courtyard. Back there's our first glimpse at the Chicken of the Sea pirate ship based on Hook's Jolly Roger. See the carousel going in front of us, which is a little more forward, a little closer to the castle than it is nowadays. And look at this, the Fantasyland Skyway floating up overhead. The original sky buckets, replaced later with Bob Gurr's more square and more colorful buckets. Look at that going overhead, blowing people's minds. And then, of course, there she blows, the Chicken of the Sea pirate ship, sponsored by Chicken of the Sea Tuna. You can get a tuna pie in there, get yourself a tuna burger, a tuna sandwich. I know Monstro wishes he could go for a tuna sandwich right now. Instead, he's going to have to be content swallowing all those guests headed into Storybook Land. Look at that. He's had dental work since back then. Look at those needle teeth back in the day. And then what can we even say about Alice in Wonderland? I mean, this was mind-blowingly themed compared to the carnivals and fairs these guests would have been used to. It still blows my mind today. Look at that, no caterpillar on top of that mushroom. Was it a myth that he was ever there? His shoes are there. To this day, no one knows. All right, these guests we're shadowing are obsessed with the Chicken of the Sea pirate ship. I think they must have smelled some tuna. Look at that figurehead on the front. That is so absolutely fantastic. Oh, we're flying the colors up there, the Jolly Roger. Watch out, guys. These tuna pirates mean business. Look at the size of this thing. Look at the masts. Look how freaking epic looking all the rigging is, the rope work and stuff. And you can actually get up there on the deck. You can grab the steering wheel, the rudder. Look at this guy. He's stoked. He's on the bridge. He said, come on, let's go. We got to get in there. We got some tuna. What are you doing? Taking movies? I'm hungry. Let's get inside. We're still taking movies? Come on, let's go. Let's hurry up. I'm starving. Well, fine. If you're not coming in, I'll just come back towards you. Look at, they got cannons. They got tuna. Are you guys crazy? Let's get in here. Look at this thing. Oh, come on, guys. Ooh, here we've got somebody's dad over here in front of the teacups. Why does he have one shoe off? He's sitting right in front of the little lagoon surrounding the Chicken of the Sea pirate ship. It is sitting in water. Did he slip? Did he get a foot in there? Looks like he's drying out a shoe. And I mean, if not, otherwise, who takes off a shoe? Ugh. I guess that's why they came up with the no shoes, no shirt, no service rule. Imagine the smell of tuna and this guy's foot. Not a good combination. Oh, look at this. The spires of Cinderella's castle over there in Storybook Land. You can see it from the canal boats. Obviously, you can see it from Casey Jr.'s circus train. Whoa, okay, I guess he wasn't too interested in Casey Jr. Look at this. We've gone straight over to the teacups. Classic attraction. I can't believe how popular the teacups are, that they have been around now for 70 years. People just love spinning and spinning. And speaking of spinning, look at this. It's Timothy Mouse up there with his long original whip, training fresh recruits, training fresh Dumbos, trying to get him to fly. Look at the length of that whip, man. Timothy Mouse means serious business. Look at that. It's not just elephants flying. You can see the Skyway through Fantasy, or Skyway to Tomorrowland, actually, cruising up back there behind them from the Swiss Chalet, just off to our left. Look how exciting it was to fly on Dumbo, and even more exciting to actually get on the Skyway to Tomorrowland. Look at this. We are now flying high above Fantasyland. There's the guy with no shoe. Sock's still wet, I guess. The sock is still wet. This is how you know it's at least 1959, because we're headed towards the mighty Matterhorn. One last glimpse back towards Main Street, back towards the castle, and look down here. Boy, look at how small the people look. Oh, there's Alice in Wonderland again. Look at how narrow that original upper story was. Oh, and here we go through the Matterhorn itself. You can see all the way down to the bottom. You can see all those bobsleds whizzing around inside. You can hear the screams funneled up through the entire Matterhorn. Now in our day, it's all clogged up with scenery. And look at this, speaking of scenery, behold, the original Tomorrowland. And look down there. It's that brand new submarine lagoon. And here comes Bob Gurr's original monorail, zipping around the tracks. Oh, and you can see the station. We are headed towards the station. The Autopia is kicking underneath. Off to our right, you see that journey to the moon, that huge TWA rocket. Over to our left again, some of the bridges and roads of Autopia. I mean, this is an overstimulating land today. I can only imagine, I guess, in 1959 or 1960, and the way they would feel coming into this station so stoked. We're going to Tomorrowland, the world of the future. Behold, look at the mighty Matterhorn rising up above it all. Look at that Skyway. Look at the Skyway only goes halfway through the Matterhorn, and boy, did it feel like you were way the heck on top. Oh, there she blows, that original monorail, the Disney Alweg monorail system, riding on the rail, I was going to say rails, above the Autopia, that old original Autopia. Look at that thing go by. It's like a spaceship straight out of Buck Rogers, designed by my friend Bob Gurr. And speaking of which, so were these, the old original Journey into Liquid Space, the submarines. Or I should say the submarine voyage also opened up in the summer of 1959. Those are the same submarines we're riding around in today. A good design will last a lifetime. Look at those sky buckets above us, though. I remember being a kid and people spitting and dropping pennies out of those things. Might be part of the reason they're gone now. Look at the size of the Matterhorn. Again, with all the trees so small, everything in old Disneyland just looks bigger. Oh, it's making me sick looking up there at those. But this fills me with joy. Look at that monorail. And that's a thing of beauty. It looks like it's out of a movie. It doesn't look like it was ever real. I love the outfits, by the way. You see the outfits on everybody down below the monorail. Look at these guys. They're all in their shirt collars, and the women in these beautiful dresses. Must be a nice warm day outside. I don't see too many winter coats. Boy, have the outfits changed at Disneyland since 1959. That's for sure. Not saying everybody dresses poorly today. Just very, very different. Dude, this was such an exciting spot to be standing. I can't imagine the stuff they were doing when they weren't filming. This family that's taking us around Disneyland back in 1959, 1960. But in 1959 and 1960, this was all brand new and mind-blowingly technologically advanced. The submarine voyage, you're going down under the sea, seeing animatronic fish, you had that futuristic monorail flying overhead, you had the Utopia Freeway of Tomorrow over here, the giant Matterhorn and the Skyway looming overhead. All this stuff was essentially brand new. The Skyway had been here for a little bit, the Utopia had been here since the beginning, but they were all redesigned and upgraded. You could just imagine standing here with them and watching those sky buckets float right through the Matterhorn, right above the futuristic monorail, the submarines, which at that time was very high advanced technology, atomic submarines. Even though the Skyway terrified me, I still miss seeing the Skyway station over there and watching the buckets float through the sky. It added so much movement to Tomorrowland. And speaking of Tomorrowland, or the rest of Tomorrowland that wasn't shiny and brand new, it would get a very aggressive makeover in only about 8 more years after this film footage. The bulk of old Tomorrowland looked nothing like the Tomorrowland of the 21st century. You remember, of course, that beautiful entrance with the flags of the world around the atomic clock of the future, leading you in to the future of mankind, the world of tomorrow. Our hosts were too excited to get much footage, but from a couple years later, look at this film. Look at Tomorrowland in its original state. Look at those colorful buildings. There's the original 1956 Astrojets sitting in front of the Matterhorn. Those are those later sky buckets here, redesigned by Bob Gurr. And we've hopped on board so we can look down at the colorful awnings over some of the diners in Tomorrowland. Look at that. Anyway, as you can see, Tomorrowland, a very different place in the 1950s than it even would be in the late 60s, 70s, 80s. And that, all of that, completely different than the Tomorrowland of today. Although we did get our rocket back eventually. It's now a pizza rocket. A pizza rocket. The history of Tomorrowland, especially the original Tomorrowland, absolutely fascinates me. So I promise you we will return to 1950s Tomorrowland in a much more detailed way coming up here pretty soon. But we don't want to wrap up with Tomorrowland. Let's jump back in time again and back across the park to Frontierland, which in the afternoon is always difficult to film the sign over the fort, which isn't just true today when it's backlit, but was also true back in 1959, and people wanted to get footage of this area. Look at this guy backing up to get the gate, to get the flag that's still flying above Frontierland even today. And then farther in, the glory of the Mark Twain. People were stoked on Frontierland because, of course, cowboys and Indians and all those old Western adventures, that was the most popular thing on TV at the time for kids and for adults alike. Western movies were absolutely huge. People were feeling very nostalgic, very American after the war, so tales of Mark Twain were absolutely beloved. Just imagine seeing that huge riverboat, something very uncommon in the West. Ooh, and here we are along the rivers of America. There's Cascade Peak right there, and all those beautiful waterfalls, one of which, not this one, was called Big Thunder Falls. That gave name to Big Thunder Mountain that replaced it later on down the road. Look at the size of that. Look at how huge that scenery and theming were. Uh-oh. The Mark Twain's chugging away from us, chugging away from the dock. Beyond it in the distance, you see the original Chicken Plantation restaurant. See all those umbrellas there in front of it? That restaurant is sitting pretty much where Pirates of the Caribbean sits today. Look at that riverboat. I mean, I cannot imagine Disneyland without the rivers of America, and I can't imagine Disney World either, but that's a topic for another time. Look at those people fishing over there on Sawyer Island. But there's no need to go over there yet when we have the exciting, the inspiring town, the western town of Rainbow Ridge right here before us, with so many attractions back in the late 50s, including this, the Mine Train Through Nature's Wonderland attraction. You see those yellow trains up there just waiting for passengers to board. And you know what? Maybe if it's down for maintenance, we'll just cruise over here under these colorful straw umbrellas to Casa de Fritos, a Fritos-inspired Mexican restaurant where, by the way, the Dorito was invented back in the day. Never could I have imagined when I made that first video on YouTube about it, like, what, 11 years ago or something, how many times that fact would be repeated afterwards. That's the Rancho del Zocalo today, so it's still sitting here. So this little area behind, kind of squeezed behind the dining area of Rancho del Zocalo today, as you can see by what's sort of left of Rainbow Ridge in Big Thunder, these buildings back here in the very back, including this mineral hall up here that used to have a display of old mining rocks in it, these are original Rainbow Ridge 1950s Frontierland buildings. And in fact, there's still some miniature buildings over above the queue area for Big Thunder today. But of course, none of it holds a candle to the old original Rainbow Ridge area that used to take up so much of Frontierland. It wasn't just your portal to Nature's Wonderland via the train, but also the pack mules, the Conestoga wagons, even earlier than that, the stagecoaches, or the gunfights that used to happen over here in Frontierland on a daily basis. Oh yeah, we're supposed to be back in time. Look at that golden horseshoe. It's been here since the very, very beginning. Someday I hope to see a big Old West review show return to the Golden Horseshoe. Back in the day, of course, you had Wally Bogue and the old Golden Horseshoe Review, one of the longest running, if not the longest running live production in the history of man. But our host family has no time for that. They'd rather peer over at the rafts to Tom Sawyer's Island, which are right here docked along Rivers of America in front of the chicken plantation. That was that restaurant I just mentioned, was sitting right about where Pirates of the Caribbean is now, which means sort of roughly in this area. You used to depart for Tom Sawyer Island on the absolute opposite side of the island and land over there by the old mill behind the canoes there, right in this area. So things have changed a little bit. And then looking back behind them into the creek leading to Adventureland, a couple of crocodiles down there. Before you had this big old thick walkway, it was just a creek, a little skinny path. You had those static alligators or crocodiles back there. I don't know which species it was. Well, let's face it, the species was actually plastic. Don't yell at me. And then this is where our hosts go crazy. Look at how excited they are looking out at the Rivers of America, Tom Sawyer Island. There's the old original keel boats, the first versions of which were actually props from Davy Crockett and the River Pirates. And then, of course, everyone was blown away by the size and the scale of the freaking Columbia. And our host starts losing it over the riverboats here. Look at that on the right side of Tom Sawyer Island. The old fishing piers and the old docks for the rafts on the opposite side than they are today. Here comes the Mark Twain past the mine train, right into Rainbow Ridge, right into the dock over there. And our host cannot stop filming it because it was an absolutely glorious, mind-blowing sight. Still is today. And of course, that goes doubly apparently for the scale of the Columbia, because this guy could not stop panning up the masts. I get it, there's nothing people love more than a good mast sticking up, but this seems like an excessive amount of footage. I'm like, turn the camera around. We want to see what was there before the Haunted Mansion. Wow, look at that boat right there. Look at that little bridge to get onto the Columbia. I'd be scared boarding on that bridge. Is that the way they boarded it? No. Maybe that's just the way the crew got off when they were doing maintenance. Here comes the Mark Twain behind her. And then, my friends, unfortunately, the mists of time have overtaken us again. And we've come back to the future. Oh, well, at least Disneyland is still here. It's still beautiful. Still has many wonderful attractions from the past tucked away, like including the Mark Twain. You can still ride on the same ride vehicles your grandparents enjoyed. I wish there was a little bit more of the old mixed in with all the new, but that's exactly why we travel back in time via the Random Land Archive, which I am trying to grow and expand all the time. So if you have any old Disneyland footage or pictures from any era, send them my way. Normally we chop those things up a little bit more. We do a lot more then and now comparing than just sort of staying in the past. But that film footage, that's old 16mm footage, absolutely so fantastic, so beautiful. I just felt like sharing the whole chunk with you out here. What a word, right? Chunk! Look at that canoe go. Man, that's the one attraction, by the way. Here's a little piece of trivia for you. I have never ridden at Disneyland. Why? Because I want to save something. I don't want to feel like I've ever completed the quest. Although, even if I had done everything out here today, there's still so many things from back in the past. Mine Train through Nature's Wonderland, for example, that I haven't done. I guess that sense of mystery and mystique will always remain with me. Anyway, I just wanted to keep that simple. I just wanted to have a simple stroll, a simple day at Disneyland with you guys. I feel like the holidays, Christmas at Disneyland, has been going on forever and ever and ever. So it's a nice break to just jump back in time and enjoy the Disneyland of Walt's Day when, remember those crowds from Main Street? Things were a little simpler, at least in terms of, walking forward. I hope it was a nice break for you from the holiday madness. I know it was for me. And although now I'm all warmed up, I want to keep diving through old Disneyland history with you, keep diving through the archives. Ooh, the Scarchives? We should probably stop now before we get too carried away. Because our next Disneyland history adventure is going to be a fun one. And I'm going to be honest with you, if I stand here for 5 more minutes, I'm going to end up spoiling it for you. Don't worry, I'm going to be back at Disneyland for some more random land adventures very shortly, and hopefully that means you'll be here along with me, especially if you have subscribed or made sure you're still subscribed. Or if you like these videos, you can click that bell, hold that bell down, and select all notifications. Whoa. Of course, if you hated this video, you can always show me who's boss and give it a big fat thumbs up. That'll teach me. There's no more swans in the moat, but there's links down below for you to check out that I hope you will give a clickety-click to. Because now that you've made it to the very end, if you click those links, you will have completed your duty. Which means until next time, you can go home and sleep well. Well, would you look at this? Finally upgrading technology down here at the Disneyland Resort. Brand new entrance and exit gates, just like the ones, well, at your local subway station, but also just like the ones at Disneyland Paris. Very, very similar. Scan your own pass and ticket. You can go through. Wonder if it'll say Duckle, Duckle, Duckle. Like France, that would be awesome. That'd be a cool Easter egg. How come they never listen to my ideas? Oh boy!